Hello, my name is Miguel, founder of ztris, the tool to understand better your business, simulate different scenarios, and make informed decisions based on data. In today's presentation, our objective is to cover the framework that has led to our current solution. An early disclaimer: this work is partially inspired by the sensational work of NYU professor Ashvat Damodaran, as well as other authors, and my practical experience in the field, working in business strategy for many years. So let's start by the concept of risk and uncertainty and make it very clear that it's not something new. It's a feature fully embedded in how the world works. From the very origins of mankind, we have faced risks, like being assaulted by a large animal in the nature, and particularly when we want to get into large endeavors, like taking a boat across the Pacific Ocean, we are always facing the uncertainty of what will we find. And it can be death, but as well it can be glory. This focus has led to a very unregulated environment that we live today. It's complex, it's hard, it's affected by political risk, maybe more than ever, with risks in wars, in health, etc., that are affecting the businesses and are external. But we also have some internal challenges, like how we are operating, what is the growth that we will be achieving, what will be the level of satisfaction of our clients, etc., that might ultimately take our business out of operation. And there are 5 identified ways to deal with uncertainty. Number 1 is herding. If I don't know what to do, I better do whatever everyone else is doing. Then, as I say here, if you don't know, follow the crowd, because it's a way to be safe. The second is the paralysis and denial. I always listen to this concept of paralysis by analysis, whatever it means. But of course, when we face something that is uncertain and unknown, it's easy for us to, number 1, deny, and second, not know how to act in front of that. Then there is the mental shortcut. It's like making rules of thumb, taking some of our past experience in order to make easy decisions. But this is not something that happens to only the least capable, but even the most capable will always go to reference frameworks that have worked in the past and make the same decision, or make an assumption that whatever worked in a particular situation might work in a new one. Outsource. This is something that we see in business a lot. If I don't want to make the decision, it's very easy. I take that load, I put it on an expert, whether it's a McKinsey consultant, whatever, and then I don't need to face the uncertainty because I'm trusting someone who theoretically knows. And the last, that we all do at some point, particularly in personal life, is to pray to the gods, whatever they are, and say, hey, I don't know how to deal with it, and look for divine intervention to help us. Oops, and I'm missing one, which is the most important. There is always an alternative when facing uncertainty. It's just to go face to face and make a clear statement on what you want to do. And there are 2 main ways to deal with it. Number 1 is to risk-adjusted value. And this is something very conservative people or very conservative business are doing, is to take whatever the discounted cash flows and use a risk-adjusted discount rate, meaning if I believe that I want to get 10% profit, return on investment, for example, I will ask every business plan that I get a 15% hurdle. The second, is even more conservative, is to replace the expected cash flows. Like in a regular business, we expect to grow, we expect to gain new business, we expect to achieve some operational efficiencies, etc. and change those, substitute them by the warranted cash flows. Let's say instead of saying over the next couple of months I will win a number of contracts, I just go to the contracts I have and I use the risk-free rate. The problem with this approach is that if you take it, you will become so conservative, you will never do anything. The second approach is the probabilistic approach. And it means becoming more sophisticated in the way we analyze things, with tools like sensitivity analysis, what if, what happens if I do this or that, building scenarios, having a clear decision tree, or making simulations. The problem with this is that they are hard to build, but harder to explain. So if this ends up being a black box, it will become an issue when you need to get the support from others and people to join your work. And here is where narrative and numbers starts playing a very good impact. No? As I said, you cannot have a strategy that is a black box. You need to get buy-in from other people. This is something I learned in the early days when I was working in a strategy. It's not so important what is the strategy, but making sure that this is communicated across the board to all the people who are participating in achieving their goals, and make sure that this happens. The problem with this is that there are two mindsets, and in all organizations we have these two mindsets. One is the data cruncher, the other is the storyteller. People that are left-brained and right-brained. And here comes that they typically are biased into two different ways of doing things. The numbers people will look at the accounting, the spreadsheets, the statistics, the data. And the narrative people are going to go for tools like anecdotes, experiences, behaviors that they have perceived. The point is that both of these approaches have like an Achilles thing, no? They have a weakness, and is that they create false illusions. For the people who are into numbers, they say, oh, I have data and it's precise. I have data, it's objective. I have data, I can control the situation. And none of those is true, because there are many ways to show data, and they will have a clear, distinct result. For the narrative people, they always will say like, the story is better than the data, or having a clear story is a guarantee that I will achieve my goals. And they base themselves a lot on previous experiences. And all of those is an issue as well, because a story that is not supported by the right data is just not going to make sense. The point here is, why not taking a hybrid approach of both things, being partially into the narrative and partially into the numbers, and creating something that empowers and inspires people, but as well-grounded on realistic data, well-formulated, that can be leveraged for a stronger story. And at the same time, when we have a robust story supported by data, we can appeal to both people like left-brained and right-brained. This takes us to the models of the world. This is a new concept. With current technology like AI, big data, cloud computing, etc., we are today in a unique position. Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA, was recently making the point in one of his presentations, explaining that they have created a replica of the world where they can make weather forecasting across the globe based on a minimal amount of computing, which is a total game changer. The point is, if I can create a replica of the world, I can use it to simulate different scenarios. And as I have simulated these scenarios, where I dress more formally, I dress more casual, but it's the same core person facing situations, I have an opportunity to identify many outcomes. And I can maybe have a pile of bad ideas, some things that are not working, and at the same time, I can see some points of good outcomes, things that they are actually working. And this can help me make better decisions. The point is a model of the world is a complex concept that requires us to do a logical effort, a strong thinking process. And it requires unbundling reality. So we need to take the concepts in the world and unbundle them to understand what are the pieces that are forming it. Each element is important to be simplified and at the same time built into the replica of the world. Because it's not how it looks, it's how it behaves. So that is clearly one of the challenges of building models of the world. The point is, we have many basic frameworks that have been used in the world in general for many years that can help us simplify the world to create these replicas. Because at this stage, with the current level of computing, we don't need to build the perfect digital twin of the company, of the business. We just need to create something that is directional. So we will have different simulations and make a better decision. Some of these tools include Mintos pyramid, which basically conveys the concept of breaking up a hypothesis or a concept into smaller things, getting a support for the overall concept. MISI. It is important that when we create these models of the world, we identified perfectly which are the components. And we make sure that the list of components, the unbundling that we have made of the world, has no gaps and at the same time not overlaps. Because every gap can become a blind spot and every overlap can lead to like multiplying the impact of modifying and overweighting the impact on particular elements of the model. The next is the value tree. I have always been of the idea that if you can break a big thing into smaller components, it will make it easier to face any challenge. And this is the main concept on this. If we can break it in enough small elements, it will have a more clear behavior and it will be easier to model and then simulate with that. Another point that we don't do in real world, but is very important in the model of the world, is you need to zoom out. You need to step back and see that having a more distant view on what is happening, taking out all the non-objective concepts, all of the feelings out of the equation, and understanding trends, not particular experiences or anecdotes. And the last one is having critical thinking. Because you will simulate something, you will get some data or something, but at the end of the day, we need to take it like with a lot of critical thinking, because we cannot straightforward make an assumption based on statistical data, because there are multiple concepts making their appearance into that. And here is where the human touch is so important, because at the end of the day, we as humans have a limited amount of computing power for complex and dynamic scenario building. We are like a person walking. And as per Steve Jobs' quote, computers are a bicycle for the mind. Frameworks like the ones explained or models of the world give us the opportunity to take the analysis of the world to the next level, making sure that we create solid and robust methodologies to understand how our world works. And this is what has inspired us and the solution we are creating, ztris, to build, understand, and simulate scenarios based on simplifying the complex world of our businesses understand the relationships between the different drivers, and make sure that we use the power of computing to simulate potential outcomes. And of course, then there is the point of the person, the human touch, who is going to be the one making the critical thinking, making the assessment of whether it makes sense or not, and how likely it is to go over one scenario or the other. But this is why we are so empowered and illusionated, if that word exists, I don't think so, with this new concept of creating a digital twin of your business, simulate different scenarios based on changing assumptions and the behavior of each of the key drivers for the ultimate goal that your business has, that might be growth, profit, or whatever it is. So we invite you to join our tool and ask for an introductory demo. And here we are. Thank you very much, and happy to hear all of your feedback. How do you see this evolution that we are moving from a static world to a very dynamic and complex world where only the power of digital can help us make better informed decisions based on simplified models and the power it can turn into our businesses. I hope it helped. Bye-bye.